Hey everyone, and welcome to the Explainer. So today we're going to look past a viral joke you might have seen circulating online recently. We're going to use it to uncover the very real and, frankly, staggering scale of global AI infrastructure. We tend to think of the cloud as this invisible, completely weightless thing, right? But the physical footprint required to build today's artificial intelligence is actually immense. I'm really excited to guide you through this today because by breaking down this exact dynamic, we can literally see where the entire tech industry is headed. Let's get into it. Okay, let's dive into this. OpenAI announces construction of new data center on top of sick child. Now, I want to be entirely clear right out of the gate. This May 2026 headline is pure fiction. It comes straight from The Onion, the famous satirical news publication. There is no sick child, there's no announcement. But as a hook to grab our attention, it's incredibly effective. Because for satire to really work, it has to be grounded in a recognizable truth. And honestly, that brings us right to the turn of the joke. This parody lands perfectly because the reality of OpenAI's planned infrastructure expansion is already so massive it kind of strains normal belief. The Onion is playing on the pure absurdity of a data center on a sick child to point directly at reality. A highly reported, very real plan for OpenAI to build a massive new data center facility in India. To understand why this is such a huge deal, we need to look at the actual facts reported by Reuters and Bloomberg in September of 2025. Section 1. The 1 gigawatt ambition. Sizing up OpenAI's expansion. Now, what's really interesting here is just the sheer mind-boggling scale of this number, 1 gigawatt. The reports indicated that OpenAI was planning a data center in India with at least 1 gigawatt of capacity. In the tech world, we hear about megabytes and gigabytes literally all the time. But a gigawatt of power for a single AI training cluster, that is a truly abstract, almost unbelievable scale of energy consumption. It represents just a single node in a much broader global expansion happening across the AI industry. To really help us wrap our heads around this, let's anchor that abstract number into physical reality. 1 gigawatt is roughly equivalent to the entire energy output of a large nuclear power plant. Or, to put it another way, it's enough energy to power approximately 700,000 average US homes. Imagine an entire city of that size and all of its power requirements just being channeled into one single data center facility. It's wild, right? It really helps you visualize the immense energy required to sustain these new AI capabilities. And that requirement forces us to shift our whole perspective on what AI actually costs in the physical world. Section 2. The physical costs of AI, grounding the cloud. This right here brilliantly illustrates exactly what The Onion was mocking. AI companies frequently use public communications that focus on these lofty humanitarian goals, right? Building tools to help humanity solve complex global problems, advance science. But the harsh physical reality is that you absolutely cannot run these massive models without land, unprecedented amounts of power, millions of gallons of water for cooling, and the real-world communities that live right where these facilities are built. The satire just highlights that uncomfortable gap between the pristine PR language and the heavy physical footprint required to make the tech actually work. However, satire necessarily simplifies things. The joke paints a picture of a single corporate villain just making a unilateral decision. But building a 1 gigawatt data center in the real world, it involves rigorous, highly distributed negotiations. It means working with local zoning boards, conducting extensive environmental impact reviews, handling incredibly complex utility negotiations, and securing multiple levels of government approvals. It's a massive, multi-layered logistical undertaking. And beyond just the physical footprint, this specific shift to India has some massive implications for developers and the global data ecosystem. Section 3. Developer and data implications. The shift to India. Let's move along and see how this builds because for the folks actually creating our software, a massive new hub in India completely changes the landscape. Step 1, it directly affects latency routing. That means much faster response times for South Asian internet traffic. Step 2, developers and companies have to adapt to and account for India's specific energy mix when they're calculating their carbon footprints. And step 3, it introduces the need to navigate local Indian data residency laws, which are actually quite different from US or European Union frameworks. Compute is getting distributed geographically, and that fundamentally changes long-term cost structures for everyone involved. And, speaking of that energy mix, we really have to look objectively at the grid this new facility will be plugging into. The current energy dynamic in India has historically been coal-heavy. That means the immediate power drawn by a massive data center has a specific, tangible carbon footprint attached to it. However, the future dynamic shows India is aggressively adding renewable energy capacity.
So the long-term environmental impact of housing one of the largest single AI infrastructure investments outside the US right here, it's a continually evolving situation. Now that we understand the scale, the physical toll, and the impact on developers, let's ask the real infrastructure questions, the ones beyond the satire.
Section 4. The real infrastructure questions beyond the satire.
So, the absolutely crucial point here is that while a funny satirical headline from The Onion might age out quickly and fade from our social feeds, the real world friction it points to is a lasting policy issue. Right now, as we speak, there are active, ongoing disputes in the actual communities housing these tech hubs. We're talking intense municipal zoning fights in places like Northern Virginia, serious water use disputes in drought-affected regions where these centers need significant cooling, and big concerns over how massive power purchase agreements might impact local grid stability and electricity pricing for everyday people. These aren't hypotheticals, they're happening right now. Ultimately, we all love marveling at the incredible capabilities of modern AI, but as we've seen today, those capabilities require an immense physical foundation. So as these multi-gigawatt projects continue to be proposed all over the globe, we have to ask, who decides where AI infrastructure goes and on whose terms? It's a question of public deliberation that goes way, way beyond a punchline, and it's one we all need to keep a very close eye on as the tools we use every day continue to grow. Thanks so much for joining me to unpack this explainer, and remember, keep looking closer at the physical footprint of our digital world.